next in our series discussing the stances, we covered neutral bow. That's your most basic, your fundamental one there that we're going to start with. I'm actually going to go in the order of what we do every class. We call this our stance set series. And it's part of our bowing in procedure. Now, we don't actually bow, we use a salutation. But in the process of finishing that salutation, immediately after that, we go into what I would call our stance set. And this is usually after our warm-up, so you've already warmed your legs up pretty good with some of the basics. I'm going to go over those as well. But then we'll go into this stance set, and it continues to kind of keep that pump in your leg. And then we'll do a stretch, and that's what I plan to cover with this introductory course, all three of those. The warm-ups, our stance set, our stretching series, and that'll be what someone would need to know, honestly, for about the first 20 to 30 minutes of our class. And we do that consistently every time. But this way I can go over into more depth each part that we cover in that. So, right after we've done our full salutation here, our stance set starts with what we call our ready position here. Boom. Feet together, legs kind of locked straight. I'm pulling my shoulder blades back together, and my hands come tight to the sides here. This comes out of the Kung Fu systems. You'll see it in Wushu often. Their forms begin with a pop to this position, and they'll look to the direction the form is going to go to begin. Whether to pop this way or to look this way before the form begins. And we have a few forms that start out that way from this ready position. So, starting with ready. That's our ready position there. Alright, that's not complicated. From here we're going to go to horse stance. To get to horse stance, I'm going to first flare out with my heels. Then I flare out with my toes. When I flared out with my heels, we call this our concave stance. Flare out with the toes, that's convex. Flare out with the heels again, that's a little bit wider, but that's concave. Flare out with the heels again, convex, and then square my feet. And that's how deep my horse stance should be. That's how you find it there. So I could widen that or shorten that, but the ideal stance is just how I got there. First out with the heels, then the toes. Heels, toes, square. That's how wide, and it'll be different for every person based on how long their legs are, but getting there that way will get you where you're supposed to be, how wide your horse stance should be. Alright? So I'm bending my knees, and again, got to support the knees with the feet. I want my feet to be, and knees to be pointing in the same direction. Here, that's important. That's one way to know you're too wide. If you start getting too wide, you've got all this space underneath the knees, there's no support. So it should be to where my feet are just on the outside if I shot a straight line down from where my knees were there, and so that they're still protected that way, they're still safe. And my toes and knees are pointing in the same direction, right? Sinking down into that stance again, standing up straight, I can't see my toes looking down. That's where I want to be with the horse stance. Now on this one, just like ready, you could chamber here. In fact, we have exercises. We'll go through a series of punches, whatever, from this horse stance position. But when we do it in the stance set, I like to bring the hands out to the side. I want to emphasize thinking tall with your head and your body flat. Flat as a pane of glass this way. From your left fingertips down to your right, you're just a flat position this way. So think flat as you come to the horse stance. Now the next step we're going to take is right into our neutral bow. Step right back, in toe-heel line there. We've talked about how we find our neutral bow fighting stance. So I'm not going to go over that here, but from the neutral bow then, we're going to shift into our cat stance. To do that, I'm going to draw my front foot back. And as I draw it back, my shoulders turn, they square up. So we're going to square to the front, shoulders as you twist, pulling your front foot towards your back foot, and your weight shifts onto that back leg. Back leg is supporting most of your weight now. The front toes are still on the ground, the ball of the foot's still there on the ground just to help support your weight. You're not standing on one leg yet, but you're close. And then from here, I'm loaded to deliver a kick as needed from this cat stance position. With the hands, and again with the stance set, the hands are just kind of covering different positions that you'll see as you're learning the forms that we go through. But I'm doing what we call a downward hooking parry, sweeping to this side, while the other hand does an inward palm block or pak-sao, slat block at the same time. Boom. And the hands should be on a direct vertical line, like they're on a wall. One hand on one side, one hand on the other, but it's a flat, thin wall this way. And there, that's cat stance. Right? So we go from ready out to horse stance, back to neutral bow, and then we're going to shift back to cat stance. From here, I'm going to raise my front leg. Now you will be standing on one leg. So to do this, really think of your weight shooting down that leg, like your leg is a pole, and you can ride up and down that pole with your hips. You want to sink down as low as you can comfortably, because that gives you a good foundation. And then from there, lift that front knee up in the air. Balancing on that front leg, we call this the crane position, or the flying bird posture here. So the crane stance, we lift that front leg. Now yes, again, we're set to deliver kicks as we need to, or if someone attacks on that low line, we can lift that leg up, using the knee sometimes to even drive the knee into someone else's kick, someone else's attack that way. Now my hands, as I come up to the crane stance, the back hand's coming up, doing like a high block position or covering this high line, and the other arm is just reaching out in front there. And this is our crane stance position here. So to get to there from the whole series, we go from ready, we go out to horse stance, we step back into neutral bow, pull back into cat stance, lift that leg up and balance crane. Now from here, we're going to step forward with that front leg. Again, keeping those shoulders square. We're going to pivot the shoulders back square again. This is our forward bow. And from here, front leg is bent and my toes are pointed forward. Back leg is straight. My toes are as forward as they can go and still be comfortable. Depending on the flexibility of your ankle, that'll vary. Some people have to have it at 45 degrees, some of them more like 90. It depends on the flexibility of your ankle as to where you're comfortable. But you want that back leg to be straight and really solid into the ground. Your front leg bent. Your weight's a little bit forward on this one. And your shoulders square. This is an aggressive posture. That's why that weight's forward. I'm lifting my right hand here, or left, depending on which leg is forward, it's going to come up, and then behind it, crisscrossed, is the back arm. There. This is our aggressive position. This is our forward bow. And anything I needed to do, anytime you have to twist, to punch or attack, you're twisting into this forward bow. So when I hit, that shot comes back into me. But if my skeleton is in the right position and the form of the punch is all correct, then that force should go all the way down through my back leg into the floor. And if I've got a strong brace, then it'll be like punching somebody with the ground behind you, or the ground being the backup mass to your punch, which is very good. That's what you want. Nobody can beat the ground. Nobody's heavy enough to stand a punch from the ground. So I want to be grounded with that back leg here as I pivot to forward bow. So one more time I'm going to show you up to that point, and then we'll do the next series. We'll cover the rest of our stance set. So I'm going from ready, I go out to heel toe, out to our horse stance. I drop back into our fighting stance, neutral bow, pull back into cat stance, and then I'm lifting that front leg up and balance for a crane, and then I'm stepping forward, twisting the shoulders to the front. This is our forward bow posture. Alright, now we'll finish the rest in the next video.